Imagine if your DNA held the key to an ancient mystery, one that scientists are only just beginning to understand. What if I told you that deep in the islands of Papua New Guinea, there exists a group of people whose genetic code is unlike any other on Earth? Their DNA contains traces of a lost human species, a species that vanished thousands of years ago, leaving behind only fragments hidden inside a select few. These people aren't just connected to our past. They carry within them a genetic legacy that could redefine everything we know about human evolution. For decades, scientists believed that human evolution followed a simple path. Early humans left Africa, spread across the world, and gradually adapted to different environments. But then something shocking was discovered. A small, isolated population in Papua New Guinea carried genetic material that didn't come from modern humans at all. Instead, it came from an extinct species known as the Denisovans. These ancient humans once roamed Asia, yet today, their closest genetic relatives are the Papuans. While most non-Africans have only a tiny fraction of Denisovan DNA, barely detectable, Papuans have up to 5%. That's more than any other population on the planet. But here's the real mystery. Papuans didn't just inherit this DNA from a single Denisovan group. They carry genes from at least two completely different Denisovan populations, one of which scientists have never even identified. How is this possible? How did Papuans hold onto these ancient genes while the rest of the world lost them? The answer lies in their isolation. After their ancestors migrated out of Africa more than 50,000 years ago, they traveled to a supercontinent called Sahul, which connected what is now Australia, New Guinea, and Tasmania. When sea levels rose, New Guinea became an island, trapping its inhabitants in genetic solitude. Unlike other populations that mixed and evolved with waves of newcomers, Papuans remained untouched. For tens of thousands of years, they survived in one of the most rugged, diverse, and unforgiving environments on Earth. Their DNA became a living time capsule, preserving a genetic signature that vanished from the rest of humanity. But this isn't just a story of ancient history. The Denisovan DNA in Papuans isn't just a remnant of the past. It actively shapes who they are today. Some of these genes have given them superhuman-like abilities. Their immune systems are incredibly powerful, with Denisovan genes helping them resist deadly diseases like malaria. In the highlands of Papua New Guinea, where oxygen levels are dangerously low, Papuans have evolved a completely unique way of processing oxygen, different from Tibetans and Andeans, who also live at high altitudes. And then there's something even stranger. A rare genetic mutation in Papuans has given some of them naturally blonde hair, despite having dark skin. This trait evolved completely separately from the blonde hair in Europeans, proving that evolution can take the same path in completely different parts of the world. So what does all this mean? Papuans aren't just a unique group of people. They are the key to unlocking secrets about our own origins. Their DNA holds clues to how humans adapted, how we survived alongside other species, and how ancient genes can still impact us today. Could this forgotten human lineage hold the key to future medical breakthroughs? Could Denisovan DNA be the reason some populations are more resistant to diseases or better suited for extreme environments? The more we study Papuans, the more we realize that the story of human evolution isn't just about who we are. It's about who we were and who we could become. For thousands of years, the people of Papua New Guinea have lived in complete isolation, separated from the rest of the world by towering mountains and dense, untamed rainforests. But hidden within them is something even more remarkable, something that makes their DNA one of the most ancient and unique genetic blueprints ever discovered. Scientists have spent decades trying to understand how and why Papuans are genetically distinct from every other human population. What they've found is rewriting the story of human evolution. Unlike other populations that migrated and interbred across continents, Papuans represent one of the earliest human groups to branch off after leaving Africa. But they didn't just migrate. They became part of one of the longest-lasting isolated populations in history. While the rest of the world changed through constant waves of migration and genetic mixing, Papuans remained in New Guinea, completely cut off. This genetic independence has allowed them to preserve something that almost every other human population lost: the deepest, most unaltered connection to our earliest ancestors outside of Africa. Scientists estimate that the ancestors of Papuans reached the landmass of Sahul, what is now Australia and New Guinea, around 50,000 years ago. But here's where things get fascinating. While most human groups have been influenced by multiple migrations, Papuans have remained largely untouched for tens of thousands of years. The genetic data shows that their lineage split from other Eurasians extremely early, forming a completely separate branch of humanity. This means they are not closely related to East Asians, Europeans, or even other island populations that later arrived in the Pacific. Instead, they are direct descendants of some of the first humans to ever set foot outside Africa, and they've held onto that genetic identity in a way that no other population has. One of the reasons Papuans remained so genetically unique is their environment. New Guinea is one of the most geographically and ecologically diverse places on Earth, home to some of the most rugged and isolated communities known to man. The island's interior is a maze of steep mountains, deep valleys, and nearly impassable terrain. This natural barrier created hundreds of small, distinct groups that remain genetically isolated even from each other. Today, there are over 800 languages spoken in Papua New Guinea, making it the most linguistically diverse place on Earth. But this diversity isn't just cultural, it's written into their genes. This extreme isolation led to something extraordinary. Genetic studies show that Papuan Highlanders and Lowlanders are so distinct that they are more genetically different from each other than Europeans and East Asians are from one another. That's how long they've been evolving separately. And yet, despite this internal diversity, one thing remains constant: their deep genetic separation from the rest of the world. This means that studying Papuan DNA is like looking into a time machine, offering a glimpse into what early humans were like before the waves of migration and interbreeding shaped the rest of the world. But their genetic uniqueness isn't just about what they've preserved, it's also about what they've adapted to. Papuans have undergone thousands of years of natural selection, shaping their DNA to help them survive in one of the world's most challenging environments. Their bodies have adapted to high altitudes, intense humidity, and the constant threat of disease. In some cases, these adaptations are so specific that they aren't found in any other human population. While Tibetans and Andean Highlanders evolved separate genetic solutions for living at high altitudes, Papuans developed an entirely different way of coping with oxygen scarcity. And it doesn't stop there. Certain Papuan genes show signs of selection for resistance against malaria, a disease that has shaped the genetics of tropical populations around the world in unique ways. This level of genetic specialization is rarely seen in human populations, and it raises a fascinating question. Could these ancient adaptations hold the key to solving modern problems? If Papuan DNA has helped them survive for tens of thousands of years in one of the most extreme environments on Earth, could it offer clues for developing new medical treatments or even help us understand how humans can adapt to future climate changes? What makes the Papuans truly remarkable isn't just their past. It's what their DNA can tell us about the future. Their genetic blueprint is unlike anything else found in humans today, and it offers a rare glimpse into how isolation, adaptation, and deep ancestry have shaped them into one of the most unique human populations on the planet. The more scientists uncover about Papuan DNA, the more they realize that these people are a living link to our most ancient past, carrying within them secrets that could change the way we understand human evolution forever. Deep in the heart of Papua New Guinea, an ancient genetic mystery has puzzled scientists for years. Unlike any other people on Earth, the Papuans carry a unique genetic inheritance, one that comes not just from modern humans, but from an entirely different species of ancient hominins. These are not distant myths or legends. They are real traces of a lost lineage embedded in the Papuan genome. But what's even more astonishing is that this ancient DNA isn't just a leftover relic. It actively shapes who they are today. Most of the world carries fragments of Neanderthal DNA, the well-known cousins of early humans who once roamed Europe and Asia. But Papuans, their DNA tells a completely different story. While Neanderthal ancestry in most people today is minimal, Papuans have inherited a far greater proportion of DNA from another mysterious hominin, the Denisovans. These ancient humans disappeared from the fossil record thousands of years ago, yet their genetic fingerprint remains stronger in Papuans than anywhere else in the world. What makes this even more fascinating is that their Denisovan DNA didn't come from just one group. Genetic evidence now proves that Papuans carry genes from at least two separate Denisovan populations, each representing a different wave of interbreeding. One of these Denisovan lineages is linked to fossil evidence found in Siberia and Tibet, but the second, scientists have never actually identified its source. It's as if a ghost population of ancient humans once existed, left no physical remains, and yet their genes survive inside Papuans to this day. But why did Papuans retain so much Denisovan DNA when most other human populations lost it? The answer lies in natural selection. Unlike random genetic mixing, the Denisovan genes that survived in Papuans were the ones that provided the most benefits. Over thousands of years, these genes became critical for their survival. Some of these Denisovan traits are still playing an essential role in Papuan life today, enhancing their immune system, helping them resist diseases, and even shaping their physical abilities in ways no other population has experienced. One of the most striking advantages of Denisovan DNA in Papuans is disease resistance. Scientists have discovered that specific Denisovan-derived immune genes are highly active in Papuan populations, helping them combat the deadly pathogens found in the tropical environment of New Guinea. These ancient genetic tools gave Papuans an evolutionary advantage in surviving infectious diseases that have plagued the region for millennia. Unlike other populations that had to develop immunity slowly over time, Papuans inherited an immune system already equipped with the tools to fight off threats. And then there's the adaptation that defies expectations: high-altitude survival. In the oxygen-thin air of the New Guinea highlands, where most outsiders struggle to breathe, Papuans live and thrive. The key to their survival isn't just practice, it's in their DNA. Scientists have identified Denisovan-derived genes in Papuans that play a direct role in oxygen processing, though interestingly, they're different from the high-altitude adaptations found in Tibetans. This means that Denisovan DNA didn't just provide one solution for surviving at high elevations. It gave rise to multiple, independent adaptations depending on the environment. But it's not just biological advantages that make this Denisovan connection so intriguing. The sheer amount of Denisovan DNA in Papuans suggests something else: a prolonged period of contact between their ancestors and this extinct human species. The interbreeding wasn't just a one-time event. It likely happened over generations, suggesting that Denisovans weren't just mysterious, shadowy figures from the past. They were real, significant parts of early human history, and nowhere is their legacy stronger than in Papua New Guinea. This raises a profound question. How many other undiscovered human ancestors might still be hiding within our DNA? If the Denisovan genes in Papuans came from more than one source, could there be other lost hominin species that we haven't yet identified? The story of human evolution may be far more complex than we ever imagined, and Papuan DNA could hold the key to unlocking it. Scattered across the mountains and valleys of Papua New Guinea, the people who have lived here for thousands of years carry a secret written deep in their DNA, a secret so profound that it sets them apart from every other human population on Earth. While the rest of the world's genetic map is tangled with migrations, interbreeding, and cultural shifts, Papuans hold onto something rare: an unbroken genetic lineage shaped by extreme isolation, unique adaptations, and a past that still echoes through their very biology. Unlike populations in Asia, Europe, or the Americas, whose genetic identities have been reshaped by centuries of movement and mixing, Papuans remain a distinct branch of humanity. The reason for this lies in a crucial moment of history. Over 50,000 years ago, when early humans began spreading across the world, Papuan ancestors took a path that would lead them to one of the most geographically challenging places on Earth. As sea levels rose and separated New Guinea from the rest of the world, the people who lived there became locked in genetic isolation. For tens of thousands of years, while other populations evolved through constant contact with new migrants, Papuans remained largely untouched. This separation preserved a genetic heritage that is now considered one of the most distinct and ancient in the world. But isolation didn't just freeze their DNA in time. It allowed something remarkable to happen. Their genetic code was shaped not by outside influences, but by their environment itself. Every gene that survived was one that helped them thrive in the harsh, unpredictable conditions of New Guinea. One of the most striking aspects of Papuan DNA is its incredible diversity. Despite being a single population, Papuans have some of the highest genetic variation outside Africa. In fact, scientists have found that the genetic differences between two Papuan groups living just a few hundred kilometers apart can be greater than the differences between an average European and an East Asian. That's because their environment forced them into small, isolated groups for thousands of years, each evolving separately while remaining genetically distinct from the rest of the world. This level of genetic separation has resulted in adaptations rarely seen elsewhere. Certain immune system genes in Papuans are uniquely tuned to fight the pathogens found in their region. Their bodies have adjusted to the extreme humidity, the dense rainforest air, and even the varying altitudes found across their homeland. These adaptations aren't just relics of the past. They continue to shape the way Papuans live and survive today. But the most fascinating part of their genetic history is what it tells us about the bigger picture of human evolution. Papuans carry genetic lineages that stretch back further than almost any other non-African population, giving scientists an unparalleled look into the early days of modern humans. Studying their DNA has revealed clues about how ancient human groups migrated, adapted, and evolved in different environments. It has even helped researchers understand how genetic diversity is maintained in isolated populations. For decades, Papuan DNA was a missing piece in the story of human origins. Now, with modern sequencing technology, we are beginning to uncover just how extraordinary their genetic legacy truly is. It is a testament to survival, to resilience, and to the power of adaptation. In a world that has changed so much over millennia, the people of Papua New Guinea stand as living proof that isolation doesn't mean stagnation. It means evolution, shaped by nature itself. In the vast and complex story of human evolution, there exists a population whose DNA holds some of the most ancient and extraordinary secrets ever uncovered. The Papuans of New Guinea are not just another indigenous group, they are a genetic anomaly, a living relic of the earliest human migrations, and the carriers of a biological legacy unlike any other. Their DNA is a roadmap to a past that most of the world has lost, preserving traits that disappeared in other populations long ago. What makes Papuans truly exceptional is how their genetic history diverged from the rest of humanity. While many populations have been shaped by waves of migration and mixing, Papuans represent one of the oldest, most continuous human lineages outside of Africa. Their ancestors arrived in Sahul, an ancient supercontinent that once connected Australia and New Guinea, before almost any other humans set foot outside Africa. But once they got there, something rare happened. They remained. While other groups moved, changed, and merged with new arrivals, the ancestors of Papuans stayed isolated for tens of thousands of years, allowing their DNA to develop in a completely unique way. This prolonged genetic independence led to one of the deepest ancestral splits ever recorded. Studies show that Papuans and their closest relatives, Aboriginal Australians, diverged from other non-Africans over 50,000 years ago. But even within their own population, Papuans are highly distinct from each other, a result of thousands of years of living in small, isolated communities separated by mountains, rivers, and dense forests. In fact, their genetic diversity is so extreme that Papuans from different regions can be as genetically distinct from each other as an East Asian is from a European. But this isolation didn't just preserve ancient lineages. It also allowed Papuans to develop highly specialized adaptations. Every genetic trait that survived was one that helped them endure the harsh and unpredictable environment of New Guinea. Their immune systems are unlike any other, fine-tuned to protect them from the tropical diseases that have shaped their genetic makeup for generations. Their metabolism is adapted to a diet rooted in ancient agricultural practices, with certain genes reflecting the influence of traditional foods like yams, sago, and taro. Even their sensory traits show signs of unique evolutionary pressures, with some studies suggesting that their genes may have influenced aspects of their vision, smell, or resistance to environmental stressors. One of the most groundbreaking discoveries about Papuan DNA is that it provides a direct link to a lost chapter of human history. By studying their genome, Scientists have uncovered evidence of extinct hominin species, relatives of modern humans who vanished long ago. While traces of these ancient ancestors exist in many populations, they are strongest in Papuans, whose DNA holds some of the most well-preserved segments of archaic human genes ever recorded. This means that Papuans don't just represent an isolated human lineage, they are also the key to understanding who we coexisted with in the distant past. The study of Papuan DNA is transforming our understanding of human history. It is revealing how isolation can preserve genetic diversity, how adaptation can shape populations in ways we never expected, and how our own species once lived alongside now extinct relatives. But perhaps the most exciting part of this research is what's still to come. As genetic technology advances, new discoveries are being made every year, and Papuans continue to be at the center of some of the most important breakthroughs in evolutionary science. Their DNA is more than just a record of the past. It is a glimpse into the incredible complexity of human survival, resilience, and adaptation. High in the mist-covered mountains and deep within the dense rainforests of Papua New Guinea, an extraordinary genetic story has been unfolding for tens of thousands of years. The people who live here today are more than just the descendants of ancient explorers. They are living proof of a lineage that has remained remarkably unbroken, untouched by the major migrations that shaped the rest of the world. Their DNA carries markers of a time long before recorded history, revealing secrets about human survival, adaptation, and evolution that scientists are only now beginning to understand. When modern genetic research turned its focus to Papuans, it uncovered something astonishing. Unlike other populations that have mixed extensively over time, Papuans have retained a genetic profile that is among the most distinct in the world. Their ancestors were among the first humans to leave Africa, yet their DNA shows that they have been evolving on a completely separate path from other populations for tens of thousands of years. While much of the world experienced genetic reshuffling due to large-scale migrations, colonial expansions, and trade routes, Papuans remained isolated, developing a gene pool that is entirely unique. But what does this mean? It means that within their genetic code lies an uninterrupted record of human evolution outside of Africa. Their DNA is like a historical document, containing sequences that have been lost in most other human populations. Some of these genes reveal insights into ancient diseases, resistance to environmental stress, and even how early humans adapted to different diets and climates. The genetic markers in Papuans allow scientists to reconstruct a clearer picture of what the first humans in this part of the world may have looked like, how they survived, and how they thrived in one of the most demanding landscapes on Earth. One of the most remarkable discoveries about Papuan genetics is how much variation exists within their own population. Even though they are considered a single group, genetic studies have revealed that Papuans from different regions can be more distinct from one another than many major ethnic groups in Europe or Asia. This is because the rugged terrain of New Guinea created natural barriers between communities, preventing intermixing and leading to the development of highly localized genetic traits. In many ways, each Papuan group represents a different chapter in the evolutionary story, shaped by their specific environment, diet, and way of life. This deep genetic diversity has led to adaptations that are rarely found elsewhere. Some Papuan groups have developed natural resistance to certain parasites and infections, while others have evolved traits that help them survive at different elevations. Even the way their bodies process food and store energy has been fine-tuned over generations, reflecting a lifestyle that has remained largely unchanged for thousands of years. These adaptations are a direct result of their long-standing isolation and the pressures of surviving in one of the world's most ecologically diverse regions. But perhaps the most exciting aspect of studying Papuan DNA is what it tells us about the broader human story. Their genes provide clues about migrations that happened long before recorded history, interactions with now extinct human species, and the ways in which small populations can preserve genetic traits that disappear elsewhere. As scientists continue to explore this genetic treasure trove, they are uncovering new details about the earliest humans in the region and how they managed to carve out a life in one of the planet's most challenging environments. The people of Papua New Guinea are not just an isolated population. They are a key to unlocking some of the biggest mysteries about human evolution. Their DNA holds answers to questions we have only just begun to ask. And as research advances, we are likely to discover even more astonishing insights hidden within their genetic code. In a world that is constantly changing, they remain a link to a past that shaped us all, carrying within them the legacy of ancient humans who walked the earth long before history was ever written. Across the world, human populations have changed, mixed, and evolved over thousands of years. But deep in the islands of Papua New Guinea, an ancient genetic legacy has remained almost untouched. The people who live here today are direct descendants of some of the earliest humans to set foot outside Africa. Yet their DNA tells a story unlike any other. It is a story of survival, adaptation, and isolation, a story written in the very fabric of their genes. Scientists studying Papuan DNA have uncovered something extraordinary. Unlike populations in Europe, Asia, or the Americas, whose genetics have been shaped by centuries of migration and mixing, Papuans hold onto a lineage that is far older and more distinct. Their ancestors arrived in what was once the vast supercontinent of Sahul, a landmass that connected Australia and New Guinea, over 50,000 years ago. But when rising sea levels cut them off from the rest of the world, they became isolated, evolving along a completely separate path from the rest of humanity. This long-standing isolation did more than just preserve their ancient genetic heritage. It allowed them to develop adaptations that are found nowhere else. Their environment shaped their biology in ways that scientists are still trying to fully understand. Studies have shown that Papuans have genetic traits fine-tuned for survival in tropical rainforests, mountainous highlands, and coastal regions. Each of these landscapes pose different challenges, and over thousands of years, Papuan populations evolved to overcome them. One of the most fascinating aspects of Papuan genetics is the sheer depth of diversity within their own population. Despite being a single ethnic group, Papuans from different regions show extreme genetic differences. In fact, their level of genetic variation is so high that two Papuans from separate areas of New Guinea can be more genetically distinct from one another than an average European is from an East Asian. This is the result of thousands of years of isolation between different communities, separated by dense forests, rivers, and mountains. But their genetic uniqueness doesn't just reflect isolation. It reveals how natural selection has shaped them in response to their environment. Their immune systems are incredibly strong, with certain gene variants helping them fight off infectious diseases that are common in the tropics. Other genetic traits may be linked to energy metabolism, reflecting the traditional diets and physical demands of their way of life. Even their physical endurance and ability to adapt to different climates are written into their DNA, the result of generations of natural selection refining their genetic blueprint. What makes Papuan DNA even more remarkable is what it can tell us about early human migration. For decades, researchers have debated how the first humans spread across the world, and the genetic clues hidden within Papuans are helping answer those questions. Their DNA provides evidence of early human expansion into the Pacific, revealing how ancient populations moved, settled, and survived in new environments. It has even helped scientists uncover traces of human relatives that vanished long ago, offering a deeper understanding of how different hominin species once coexisted. The study of Papuan DNA is more than just a look into the past. It is a glimpse into the very nature of human evolution. As genetic research advances, scientists are finding more clues about how these ancient adaptations may still be relevant today. Could Papuan genes hold the key to understanding immunity, metabolism, or even resilience to environmental change? The answers may lie in their unique genetic code, waiting to be uncovered. In a world that has been shaped by movement and change, the people of Papua New Guinea stand as a living testament to human history. Their DNA is a bridge to our most distant past, a link to the first explorers who ventured beyond Africa, and a reminder that even in isolation, humanity continues to evolve. The more we learn from them, the more we uncover about our own origins, proof that the past is never truly lost, but carried within us, written in our very genes.